Hey, everybody. Welcome back. We are here talking with our good friend, Dr. Kade Sharp. We had a bit of a cliffhanger last time with a great big question, but as always, I am Matt Lowry, LPP in Kentucky.
And I am Dr. Erin Finley, PsyD in California.
And for those who missed last time's episode, again, timey-wimey, I'm not sure how we release things, but they will be out there eventually. We had a big question. Also, who are you, Dr. Kade Sharp, and why are you here, and what was that big question we asked?
Yeah, I'm Kade. I'm an LICSW, PhD in clinical sexology. I practice in Washington State. Got a couple other certifications, but those are the big ones. The big question you left us on, I mean, I've been thinking about it since we last met. It really reminds me of something RuPaul says. I don't know if you both are familiar, but RuPaul...
Some sort of racer.
Yeah, drag racer in particular, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
RuPaul is fantastic.
Yes, so one of RuPaul's kind of taglines is, you know, if you can't love yourself, then how are you going to love anybody else?
That's a fact.
That is.
And you know what? I'm here to disagree with RuPaul. I'm sorry to say it, because I think, and you know, let's talk about it. But
I'm capable of loving RuPaul.
I do enjoy RuPaul. I mean,
good.
You know, RuPaul's done some things that you might argue with, but overall, huge supporter of the trans community, the queer community part of it, of course. But that quote, that, you know, if you can't love yourself, how are you going to love somebody else? I don't know. I think you can love others before you fully know yourself. And that's kind of what you left us on last time was if you're so highly masked, if you have stuffed down who you are gender-wise, sexuality-wise, your autistic traits, how do you love others and how do you receive love? How do you find community? We're talking about all that. And I think if you are kind of dissociated from yourself, if you're at a distance from who you really are, it can be hard for you to show up authentically. So it might be hard for others to love you super deeply and to love all sides of you, but I think you can still deeply love others. You know, that sense of loyalty and attachment and attunement with others, I think you can get there. I just think once you know yourself, you know, sometimes that leads to the safety to be yourself, explore yourself, get back in touch with yourself when you have that attachment and connection. And the deeper you go, hopefully you'll find that those people love you even more. And of course, sadly, sometimes that's not the case, but yeah, what do you two think?
Well, so on the old podcast, we did an episode about Frozen, and Frozen, Elsa is almost explicitly autistic coded. If you watch the Frozen musical, there's a lot more there about Elsa being autistic and Anna being ADHD. But the whole Anna arc is Anna really wants to love somebody, but does not know what love is. So it's really hard to see that if you don't have any examples, if the people around you haven't taught you how to love yourself, if you don't know how to value yourself. You just, at least Anna, throws herself out there and is like, oh yes, I'll choose that one because they're there. And that can be incredibly problematic.
Yeah, and I'll add that I think there's a lot of nuance here. I don't think it's binary, and binaries can be very comfortable for us, but I think that it's more accurate to say that we can love each other to the best of our ability, but that we only have access to so much ability when we know ourselves a limited amount, right? And I see this all the time in my neurodivergent couples and my mixed neurotype couples, like especially the ones who have had to survive horrific traumas through dissociation. Their ability to really be present for their loved one is diminished. That doesn't mean that they don't love the other person as much as they can, as much as they have access to. But if you have kept your emotional access to, let's say 10% of what your theoretical maximum is, of course we don't actually know what anybody's maximum is. Just for ease of discussion, let's say your life circumstances have kept you from accessing most of your emotional access, then that's all you're able to give your partner, right? That doesn't mean you're not giving that piece to your partner all the way.
100% of 10%.
100% of 10%, exactly. Matthew Wathy. And so I think that both are kind of true, if that makes sense. And when people really discover who they are, sometimes what they thought was love actually ends up being appeasement or fawning or some other nervous system strategy that they used early on in life and learned to associate with love, right? That isn't actually love.
So what is love? Don't hurt me. Don't hurt me. No more.
Love it.
Is that a quote?
It sure is, yeah. And I mean, truly love is so hard to define, because as we're talking about it, I'm like, I wonder how each of us views love and what that means to us, and what 10% would look like to one of us might look like 90% to one of us. You know, it's so interesting. Mm-hmm. But yeah, and I'm with you that sometimes those things we attribute to love, especially when we're autistic, and sometimes we have challenges with interoception to tell, like, what is this feeling? It can make it tough. It can make it tough to know.
And that's an interesting thing, because for some people, love, from what I hear, has a physiological effect like anxiety. And when something causes what we call butterflies, where you have gastrointestinal distress over love, which I find very interesting, because my sense is that there is a certain calmness and peace and sleepiness because things are covered and the person there can guard the gates with a giant battle axe or something as necessary, because I am very Viking love. It's one of those things. So, and if two people have different physiological reactions to the same interpersonal events, to the same stimuli, how does that translate to communication between people about needs, about expectations, about what they are seeking? Because if both people have different cognitive concepts of love, different physiological reactions to this concept of love, how can you get on the same page and both get those needs met in a same situation that has drastically different responses?
Yeah, it's a beautiful point too, that there are so many ways to experience it, and it's really rare that I hear from the folks I work with that love feels like the butterflies, you know? And as someone who's somewhere on the aromantic spectrum, like, love for me doesn't usually have a physiological component. It feels much more like a strong clarity and decision of loyalty. That is my...
Ooh.
I like that.
This goes into a quote, and I don't know who said it, but love is not a feeling, it is a decision.
Yeah.
That resonates with me, although I've met tons of folks where it feels like it's definitely not a decision, and they can't help who they love, and logic be damned, they'll make these choices out of love, even if it may lead to a lot of strife, and that's just never how it's been for me personally, but yeah.
How does love lead to strife? That's an interesting parallel.
That is interesting, but also I want to back up, because there's another term that's called limerence.
Mm-hmm.
Talk about that.
That's that infatuated, semi-obsessive, if you will, sort of physiologically activating state that we all go through during the honeymoon phase, or that I should say many of us go through in the honeymoon phase of a relationship. That's kind of the technical term, is limerence. And so those butterflies that you're describing, Kade, I would start out with wondering, like, is this person experiencing love, or are they experiencing limerence? And without fail, like, I have two fundamental principles when I go into work with my couples, and really with my individuals as well. The first is I do my best to cancel out as many of my own assumptions as I can, right? Because how I define love may not be how you define love, may not be how you define love, may not be how they define love, right? So that leads directly into the second principle, which is let's get the definitions on the table, right? So often when I'm working with folks, the conversations are going like this, right? And
for the listeners,
sorry.
eschew. Yeah, that's okay.
like two ships passing in the night might be a way to describe it. My hands are literally like one is passing on top while the other one is passing underneath. They're missing each other. Thank you for reminding me that people listen to this without the video. And so when that happens, the first thing we have to do is make sure we're using common language, right? And make sure that we are doing our best to shift out of I'm assuming I know what you mean into I'm taking the time to ensure I know what you mean.
Yeah.
Right? Big difference. It's a game changer.
So how can people slow down and have that level of communication so that we can get that same level of expectation and the common vocabulary so that
Right.
we can have that more effective communication? Because what one person might describe as love might be limerence, or might be infatuation, or might just be plain old horny. What is up with that?
Right. Well, I think part of it starts with a recognition of the need to slow down. Because if you don't realize that you have a need to slow down, then you won't ever do what you need to do that. Another part is sometimes you can't slow down before the mismatch or the misattunement happens. And so sometimes you have to slow down by thinking it through after, right? And this is where our tendency to replay things can be used for good, as long as we're not using it as an opportunity to beat ourselves up for quote unquote getting it wrong. Right.
Well, we've frequently spoken about how we need time to process the data that is given to us, because we take in a lot more data than most people, and we need time to churn through it. And relationships have a lot of data associated with them.
Yes, they do. So that, like, analyzing after the fact, like, okay, things just went sideways for us, and like, I'm going to take some time to help my nervous system calm down and also think through what happened in me, right? And this is the key. Like, I'm not going to think about all the terrible things that you did to me, Matt, right?
Yes.
If we were in a
glad.
relationship,
It,
right?
it allows me to keep doing terrible things.
No, yeah, well, I'm not saying that we wouldn't have conversations about that. What I'm saying is that if I'm focusing on what's happening in me, then I can start to recognize the patterns that are available for me to recognize, whether they're physiological or mental or emotional. If I'm focusing on you did this, you did that, you did the other thing, I'm now left powerless. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying we can't acknowledge that the other person did a thing that impacted us. But it's a different thing to say you made me mad than to say you just did something and I'm feeling mad.
Yeah.
Right? Those are two very different things to say.
Yes, very much so. And that taking ownership of one's emotional responses to external stimuli, whatever they may be, returns the power to say, my meat body is giving me these signals, and
Right.
I am interpreting these signals, because for the listeners here, it turns out that the signals coming to you from inside the meat body are what we call feelings. And they are tied to these concepts inside our head that we label as emotions. And it turns out that a lot of people have intertwined feelings and emotions, which is why we use the words interchangeably. But that does not happen a lot for our people because of interoceptive difficulties, alexithymia, misunderstanding these cues that come from within us, history of CPTSD, all these various factors that make all of the emotional gobbledygook a maddening mess of hormones and intensity. So it makes the whole relationship thing super tricky.
Well, and then I'll add one more thing, and Kade, I see that you're wanting to jump in as well, so I won't go too long. One other thing, too, is when we have either complex PTSD or we have developmental trauma, and those are slightly different constructs, our relational processes can get disrupted. So our ability to form relationships can go wonky, get sideways, because part of what makes developmental trauma, particularly part of what defines it, is the is lack of relational attunement or anti-attunement, right? So it's bad things happening in the context of an absent, abusive, or neglectful caregiving environment. That's the sort of the nutshell definition of developmental trauma, right? So
Oh, sorry, I need to interrupt you on that because
go ahead.
With the term, when we say abusive, we have the idea that there might be bruises or cuts or whatever. How do you know if you've been neglected?
Right. Yeah.
Because if you say, yes, I had a perfectly normal childhood, my parents were gone for weeks at a time, and we scrounged around and we found all the food that we needed. And I was the one in charge of my 7 siblings, as is the way. And we once found a key to the house, so we got to sleep indoors that night. It was fine. How can we tell the difference between that and, what's the word? Healthy relationships. Healthy. Yeah. Tell us about that.
With neglect, it's harder to notice because it's an absence of something, right? And so
an absence of something you may not know exists.
Right. It's an absence of something you may not know exists, or you may not know is what other people often or normally have, right? At least not until you encounter other people. And so a lot of times folks don't realize the severity of their neglect until they get to a point where they're interacting with other people and somebody else goes, wait, you didn't have a bed to sleep in every night? Like you didn't know you could count on having food on the table? I mean, I think there are some things that most people will recognize as like, this is neglect. Like, I didn't have clothes to wear, or I didn't have food to eat. But it can be more subtle too. Like if if I'm hungry and my family isn't tuning into my signals that I'm hungry, and I'm not old enough to provide my own food or to get my own food from the kitchen, I'm being neglected in that moment. Even though my family might love me dearly, right? That doesn't mean my nervous system isn't experiencing danger in the moment where I need food, and I'm signaling that I need food, and the people who can help me get it are not responding.
So how does developmental trauma,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, how does that relate to omnipresent chaos? Because our people are not the fans of the chaos.
No,
so if
not
there's
generally.
like the people who have utilities turned off, or random fights, or substance abuse, or all of these effects that kids like to have predictability, where you
Right.
wake up, you roughly know what's going to happen. But if there are these frequent emergencies or frequent disturbances to that pattern, what does that do to the whole development thing?
I mean, that's just another way for developmental trauma to show up. And in that case, it's not, it's just absent or just abusive or just neglectful. It's a mixture.
Ooh.
The chaos.
It can be a mixture.
It can be a mixture. It can be any percentage of any of those things. The point is you don't have people to rely on. The fundamental piece is bad things are happening and I'm alone and unsupported. At
Ouch.
a time when I, as a human, am figuring out how to human earliest, in my earliest life, right? 0 to 18 years, right? Where we go from infant to, and actually in utero as well. So hormonal chaos in the body of the mother can still create this, right?
Yeah,
And it
maternal
doesn't have
stress is a thing.
Maternal stress is a thing. And it doesn't have to happen for all 18 years of your, 0 to 18. It can be, there's a key period where, there was chaos, or somebody was absent or whatnot, and then something bad happened and you were left alone with something bigger than you could manage, and you didn't have any resources.
How big a thing can a kid manage?
Not big.
Being kids and all.
being kids and all. I mean, and the reality is it's based on the person's nervous system. This is where I take a total step away from the DSM definitions of trauma, because the DSM definitions have things like index traumas where, you know, your life has to be at risk, or you have to have, you know, witnessed XYZ, or, you know, experienced it yourself. And it's like, no. If your nervous system is like, I'm under threat and I don't have the resources to deal with that threat, and I'm not capable of managing this by myself in any kind of a healthy way, and I have nobody to rely on, nobody's keeping me safe, nobody's even got my back, right? That's developmental trauma.
What if your parents pointed out that you were far too sensitive as a child? Should you beat yourself up about that?
No.
Really?
Really?
Fascinating. Because I'm guessing that a few of our listeners might be doing that. Why is that? Why should not we? Because again, our caregivers are the omnipresent, omnipotent, omniscient, the humans that we base our ideas of God on.
Right.
Why? Tell us. Are kids too sensitive?
Kids are not too sensitive. Kids are exactly as sensitive as they are, right? And just like everything else, there's a bell curve, right? Some kids are more sensitive, some kids are less sensitive. Some kids learn to turn the metaphorical volume down on their sensitivity because their family, who should be supporting them, can't handle it, or don't handle it themselves.
That sounds a little bit like what we would call dissociation. It's a trauma term.
Indeed.
And then it loops us right back into, if you're spending so much of your time dissociated that you aren't knowing yourself, you're struggling to make community, struggling to find love. Like, yeah, absolutely. All those things are at play. And I really like what Erin was saying around slowing down, checking in with yourself. You know, if you can help define some of your internal experiences to others, it makes that communication go so much more smoothly, makes it easier to build community and to find people to love and who love you for you. I think we, you know, Erin and I haven't really jumped into this topic too much, but we did do some research on kink.
Yes, we did.
And one thing we can take from the kink community is that consent is not a one-time thing. No. And no relationship is really a one and done. We define it and then that's it forever. So if we can take that lesson of like continually checking in for consent, for how we're each feeling, for where we want things to go, whether we're friends, whether we're romantically involved, sexually involved, co-workers, if someone's your boss, you know, just checking in with each other and really taking the time to get to know yourself. And it can be hard when you have stuffed it down for so long, or we're neglected and taught, you know, that's not what we do. We don't care about those internal things. Just move along.
If there's one thing that I could encourage our listeners to memorize as a mantra, it's that our minds and our bodies don't create defenses we don't need.
Yeah.
I'm going to say that again. Our minds and our bodies don't create defenses that we don't need. Okay? So if you, listener, dear listener, have a defense.
Our favorite listener. Yes.
Our favorite listener, because you, dear listener, are indeed our favorite listener. If you have a defense that served you in the past that you're struggling with now, please give yourself grace about that. Please give yourself, you know, don't shit on yourself for figuring out a way to survive. Okay? Just please take it from us. If you can't give it to yourself, please take it from us, right? You did what you needed to do at a time in your life when you had no other choice, right? And now you probably have different choices than you did then.
Absolutely.
Does surviving horrible adverse childhood experiences, the ACE there, make someone unworthy of love?
No.
Tell us about that, because again, I believe that our favorite listener might have some doubts in their head.
Yeah. So what I'm gonna say is that if you exist, and if you're listening to this podcast, I'm going to assume you exist, That's an assumption I feel very comfortable making. If you exist, you are worthy of being loved, period. And if you have struggles believing that, that's an injury that you received from the people who should have loved you. That's not a reflection of who you are.
That seems like we might use the label shame on that.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
Shame is often defined as I am bad, as opposed to guilt, which is often defined as I did bad.
What's the difference between being bad and doing bad?
Being bad is like, it goes to the essence of your identity. It goes to the core of who you are in the world. It's not just like, I did a bad thing. I stole $20 out of somebody's pocket. That's a bad thing that, generally speaking, we shouldn't do, right? Although, if you have a need for $20, like, if you steal it from my pocket, I might not be thrilled, but I might understand, right?
That's why I've sewed up all my pockets.
Right. Well, there you go.
Yeah.
But
Defenses.
I think we can all agree that assuming all else is equal, like stealing from somebody else is not generally a good thing to do. And it would be appropriate to feel guilt about that. But that doesn't make you a bad human being.
Yeah.
Right? It doesn't make you unworthy of love. It doesn't make you unworthy of care. It doesn't make you unworthy of attention. In fact, in my mind, it means that you have a wound that makes you need extra attention, that's actually warranted. That care is warranted because, it's kind of like if you break your leg, you need the doctor to set it, right? If you have been injured, then it's so important to find people, professional or not, to find people who can love you as you are so that you can heal and become more of who you actually are so you can heal more.
A long time ago, I worked with a brother and sister couple who came from, might have been Slovakia, but they came from a place that was full of war, and there were daily air raids, and they finally got a chance to immigrate to the U.S. And things were very, very quiet, and they were having difficulty adjusting. And then one day, somebody came to their door and knocked on it and offered them a muffin basket because they were happy that these people had escaped. Serbia. They came from Serbia. So they were able to get here, gave them a muffin basket and said, "Hi, we're really glad to have you here. We're glad that you're safe now." And then after the person left, the sister of them broke down and had unbelievable crying because she didn't know how to deal with this experience. She was used to the shells. She was used to the explosions. She was used to the daily threats of death. She was not accustomed to random kindness. And when we get into this whole love thing, if all of you've known throughout your entire life is neglect and hardship and beating yourself up for being, quote unquote, too much, what happens when somebody comes along and says, "Hi, here, have a muffin basket. I love you"?
Kade, you want to take that one? You look like you have thoughts.
mean, I'm sure, it can be hard to accept that and to take that as truth and to take that person's experience of you as like a net positive or something to welcome, someone to welcome. That can be hard to grapple with the reality of what you've always been told or the messages you've always received with this new message. That's tough. And it's even harder to take that in and embrace it, And I think...
Especially if you have that wound of shame that says, "I am bad and I do not deserve these good things, so I will do everything in my power to make sure that we stay at this homeostasis because we don't need any of that inner conflict going on." Because that inner conflict, man, that can be tricky.
Yeah, it's risky to accept care from other people because it can feel dangerous when you're expecting to be bombed, whether literally or metaphorically.
What if you get used to muffin baskets and the bombs come back?
Yeah.
What
That's
if somebody
exactly
has
the fear.
tricked you What if somebody has tricked you with a muffin basket and they're planning on bombing you?
That is exactly the fear, right? Those are the fears that people go through. And so they have reactions to attachment.
Ooh.
I need to give Steve Sawyer credit for that one. Steve Sawyer is the lead brain spotting trainer who focuses on developmental trauma brain spotting, and I've been training in depth with him for the last several years. He has the Developmental Trauma Training Institute, of which I am also a part. And what he says is, it's not reactive attachment disorder, it's reactive to attachment injuries.
Ooh. That's a big reframing.
Huge.
Yeah.
And
Makes
it's
sense.
also freaking true.
Yeah.
Right?
And yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, because we live in a world that pathologizes empathy, that pathologizes taking care of others or having strong emotions about bombings of people, or, treating people with basic human kindness, respecting identity, respecting choices, respecting pronouns, respecting all of these things. And the whole pick yourself up by your bootstraps mentality. Mm. So for the longest time, that's where, we as a very individualistic culture, as opposed to other people who are more of a collectivist culture, where they focus on the whole. We have this rugged American individualism where we are the protagonist, and we must do all of the things all the time and be all of the strength.
Marlboro man.
Yes, exactly. And I was talking earlier about how, that's the problem with the Snyder Bros, because that Superman is the rugged individualist, whereas the new David Cornsweat Superman has a team of people, and he can admit that sometimes it's too much for one person. He can be wounded. He can be hurt. He is vulnerable. And there are some people that really, really hate vulnerability. What is up with that? Because is it a flaw to be vulnerable?
No, I mean, I know we're kind of pushing our time for the episode, but
we are, yes.
But I think it kind of loops us back to part one of us chatting, last time, where we spoke a lot about community. It does take vulnerability to make community if you want authentic community who will show up for you, care for you, and that you can show up for and care for as well. So I think we need to reprioritize vulnerability and creating safe enough spaces where you can be vulnerable, others can be vulnerable, and you can kind of call each other in if things are hurting you, or if you're struggling. Those check-ins, kind of like Erin said, those slow check-ins.
And this is where I wish the English language had more words for vulnerable. So if you, my dear listener, my favorite listener of all time, speak any other language that has other words for vulnerable, I'd love to have you comment them or share them with us in some way, because I want more words than just vulnerable for vulnerable. So here's the thing. There's the vulnerability of showing my full self, my full experience to someone who I trust. That's an openness and a just a bearing of my soul. And then there's the vulnerability that comes from being overly exposed, right? And the difference there is how safe is the person when they are being vulnerable or showing that vulnerability. And it pisses me off that English only has one word for that. So if you, my dear listener, have other options, please give them to me. I want them.
So we come back to that, and could love be a safety while being vulnerable?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that that's a requirement for love. I think as you go into, there's different kinds of love also, which again, stupid English being what it is, love is love is love, which is true, but also not. There's the friendship love, there's the sort of love of humanity, right? There's the brotherly love, hi Philadelphia. There's all kinds of different love, right? There's agape love, there's eros, so the erotic love, and there's a lot of different ways for us to love each other. why do we only have one word? So there's that.
I love lamp.
Lamp? Yeah. Okay. That's me not understanding what
That's a
the hell
Steve Carell. Yeah, I
look
gotcha.
for cultural references, and yes,
Anchorman, right?
Yeah, and every time you do, I'm gonna be like,
Yeah,
so-
and your extended pause is perfect because it builds in the applause sign for our favorite listener, who intimately gets all of these references and gives enough time to laugh without missing any of these. So it's perfect timing. Well done.
Yes, well, thank you. And it also validates the experience of our other dear and favorite listener. Don't tell the first one. We really like you.
Yeah.
But that whole experience of you're talking about something I have no freaking clue. And, my first response is like, oh, I'm going to nod and smile. And except that with you all, I can actually say I have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah. Leave a comment if you get the references, and it will help everybody else. Leave the time and the reference, and do you love Steve Carell back?
Yeah, I don't actually, but I'm not a TV person, so that's fine. But the thing I want to leave us with, or at least this piece, is one of the definitions of love that I really like comes from the emotionally focused therapy developed by Sue Johnson. And it's accessibility, responsiveness, and engagement. So accessibility meaning, can I access you? So do you answer the phone when I pick it up, right? Do I even have your phone number, right? Metaphorically speaking, right? Responsiveness, like if you're picking up my call, are you actually responding to me? And engagement, are you plugged into me? Are you sitting there going, that sort of, I'm paying attention to a million things, but my body is doing the nod and smile thing, right? Or am I really tuning into what you're saying? Am I responding to you authentically from my heart and myself? Accessibility, responsiveness, and engagement, that's the best definition of love I've ever heard.
I like that. I like that. It's a human interface.
Exactly.
Yeah, functional.
Yeah.
Right.
And on that note, we are going to end here and actually pick up this thread with our next episode, all about Murderbot, the hit Apple TV series and series of books about an android dealing with space hippies.
Awesome.
But before we do that, Kade, you had a couple of things you wanted to share.
Yes. Tell us about this autistic clinical insights and neurokink, which is not a kink.
Woo!
Yeah. Thank you both for having me again. I'd love to come back sometime. Maybe we can talk like relationship anarchy and how does love show up for different relationship formats and constellations, or kink or any of the other things. Yeah. But yes, autistic clinical insights. Last time we talked community. If folks who are psychologically minded and are interested in autistic psychology, mental health, whether you're a social worker, counselor in school, you could come join us in November the 14th through 16th at Autistic Clinical Insights, and the website is autisticclinicalinsights.com. I believe it's up to 12 or 13 NBCC continuing education credits, so if you need those, they will be there. And we have amazing panelists, all types, and the content is all about autistic folks, primarily by autistic folks. So you'll get to see a lot of people in the field who are themselves autistic or ADHD, multiply neurodivergent. And it's all virtual, so you don't have to leave the comfort of your environment. And then,
Excellent.
Yeah, neurokink-wise, last time I had plugged the podcast that's coming up soon with my co-host Sabrina. You can access that at neurokink.org/AUYS. But hopefully Neurokink will also have some exciting things coming as far as like sex ed for autistic folks and ADHDers. We'll see where that leads.
So it's sort of like Loveline for autistics.
That is the hope for the podcast, yes. Talking about all sorts of relationships, whether that is actual love, where we're talking like which type of love are we talking about, or things with coworkers, things with colleagues, things with your kids, parenting. We're hoping to have some guests on who are experts in the field to talk about it too and have the lived experience.
That sounds awesome.
Nice.
Might have to have you all over there sometime.
Ooh. We'll come and check out the
Happy
lamp.
to.
All right, well, thank you all.
Have a good one.
Yeah, thanks for being with us, Kade.